The galactic conclave chamber hummed with the low-frequency vibrations of a dozen alien languages, the air thick with the scent of ionized metals and exotic pheromones. Floating platforms arranged in a perfect circle hovered beneath the swirling nebula projection that served as the chamber's ceiling, casting shifting hues of violet and crimson across the gathered delegates. Admiral Marcus Cole stood on the human delegation's platform, his scarred knuckles whitening as he gripped the railing. The old Martian Wars veteran had seen enough battles to know when he was being laughed at, and right now the entire conclave was laughing. High Prelate Vexis of the Zeperian Dominion reclined on his gravity throne, his crystalline exoskeleton refracting the chamber's light into prismatic shards. A smug ripple passed through his translucent skin, the equivalent of a smirk. "Admiral Cole," Vexis said, his voice like grinding glass, "we have reviewed your petition for inclusion in the Galactic Defense Pact. The Council finds it amusing." A chorus of clicks, chitters, and harmonic vibrations rose from the other delegates. Commander Droth of the Vorak hegemony leaned forward, his four massive arms flexing. The warlord's bio, armor pulsed with veins of corrosive fluid, his jagged teeth bared in what passed for a grin among his kind. "Your species still uses kinetic weapons," Droth rumbled. "Railguns, explosive projectiles. How quaint." Cole's jaw tightened. He had expected resistance, but not outright mockery. The holographic display above the chamber's center flickered to life, showing footage of a human battleship, the USN Valiant, firing its main railgun during a training exercise. The weapon jammed mid-salvo, the barrel glowing red before buckling with a spectacular explosion. The chamber erupted in alien laughter. Vexis raised a slender, crystalline hand for silence. "Admiral, we appreciate your enthusiasm, but the Galactic Defense Pact exists to unite advanced civilizations against existential threats. Your technology is centuries behind even our most basic defensive systems. You lack energy shields, plasma weaponry, warp destabilizers." "We lack nothing," Cole interrupted, his voice cutting through the noise. The chamber fell silent, even Droth's corrosive veins stilled. "Humanity has fought its way from the dirt of Earth to the stars. We don't need your fancy toys to defend what's ours." Vexis' exoskeleton shimmered with condescension. "Brave words. But bravery does not stop a Zeperian ion lance from slicing your ships in half." A murmur of agreement passed through the delegates. The hologram shifted, displaying a by-side comparison, a sleek Zeperian dreadnought beside a blocky human cruiser. The difference was staggering. Cole's stomach twisted, but he kept his face stone. Then the vote began. One by one, the alien delegates raised their appendages, tentacles, claws, biomechanical tendrils, casting their decision into the central datasphere. The nebula overhead darkened as the results compiled. "By unanimous decision," Vexis announced, his voice dripping with satisfaction, "the Galactic Council denies humanity's inclusion in the Defense Pact. Your species is simply not ready." Droth let out a guttural chuckle. "Go home, little human, play with your toys. Leave the real wars to those who can fight them." Cole didn't move. He let the silence stretch, let the aliens savor their victory. Then he reached into his coat and pulled out a small data crystal. "Before I go," he said, sliding it across the platform's surface toward Vexis, "you might want to review this." The Zeperian's crystalline fingers hesitated before taking it. "What is it?" "Footage from our last deep-range probe near the Perseus Veil." Cole's lips curled into something too sharp to be a smile. "Seems your advanced sensors missed something." Vexis slotted the crystal into his throne's interface. The hologram flickered again, but this time it showed something far darker than human incompetence. A Vorak fleet, larger than any previously recorded, massing at the edge of known space. Their bioships pulsed with new, grotesque modifications, organic cannons, bulging with unstable energy. Droth's laughter died in his throat. Cole turned to leave, his boots clicking against the platform. "You think we're weak because we don't fight like you," he said over his shoulder. "But that's exactly why we'll survive what's coming." The chamber doors hissed shut behind him, sealing away the stunned silence. Outside, in the glittering corridors of the conclave station, Cole tapped his comm. A woman's voice crackled back, sharp with defiance. They said no, didn't they? Cole's scarred face hardened. They always do, right before they learn better. The lab smelled of ozone and burnt metal, a scent that clung to Dr. Elena Vasquez's jumpsuit no matter how many times she washed it. Buried beneath 3 kilometers of lunar regolith, the facility was a maze of reinforced bulkheads and flickering holoscreens. The only light came from the schematics floating above the central workbench. A weapon design so classified even most of Earth's admirals didn't know it existed. Elena wiped grease from her forehead, leaving a smudge. Her fingers danced across the console, adjusting variables on the projection. The schematic pulsed a monstrous hybrid of quantum theory and brute force engineering, a singularity cannon. The math had kept her awake for months. Now, it was almost ready. The door hissed open. Captain Ryan Blake stepped in, his boots clanging against the grated floor. The USN Defiance's commander was all sharp angles and coiled tension, his uniform crisp despite the dust, his eyes locked onto the hologram. That's it. Elena didn't look up. That's the thing that's going to make the Zephyrians regret laughing at us. Blake circled the projection, studying the weapon's skeletal framework. You're sure it works? A dry laugh escaped her, theoretically. She tapped a key, and the hologram shifted, showing a simulation, a Vorak dreadnought caught in the cannon's firing path. The ship crumpled like paper in a fist, vanishing into a pinprick of darkness. Singularity containment held for seconds, enough to rip through anything in its way. Blake whistled. And the Zephyrians. Elena's smile was all teeth. Their crystalline armor useless. Gravity doesn't care how fancy your exoskeleton is. The captain's comm buzzed. He tapped his earpiece, listening. His jaw tightened. They're moving up the timeline. Vorak scouts just hit the Proxima outposts. Full-scale invasion in Fey hours. Elena's stomach dropped. We need more time. We don't have more time. Blake's voice was a blade. The Defiance leaves in 6 hours. Either this thing's coming with us, or we're flying out there with railguns and prayers. She stared at the hologram. The math was sound. The containment fields should hold, but should wasn't good enough. Not when the entire fleet was counting on her. Elena exhaled. Fine, but we're not mounting this on some jury-rigged platform. It goes on the Defiance. Blake raised an eyebrow. You're coming. Damn right I am. She yanked a cable from the console, sparks flying. You think I'd let you idiots fire my life's work without supervision? A grin flickered across Blake's face. Welcome aboard, Doctor. The next 6 hours were a blur of loading crates, shouting engineers, and last-minute calibrations. The cannon's core, a sphere of humming dark matter containment, was hauled into the Defiance's main weapons bay under heavy guard. Elena followed, barking orders at anyone within earshot. Careful with that. You drop it, and we're all a footnote in physics textbooks. A young ensign paled. What kind of footnote? The kind that starts with catastrophic gravitational collapse. She shoved past him, climbing into the bay. The cannon's housing took up half the space, its surface etched with warning glyphs. Blake appeared at her shoulder. We good to go. Elena ran a final diagnostic. The containment field shimmered, stable for now. It'll hold, just don't expect a second shot. The captain nodded. One's all we'll need. As the Defiance's engines roared to life, Elena strapped into an auxiliary station. The holoscreen flickered, showing the lunar surface receding. Somewhere out there, the Vorak were coming. She clenched her fists. Let them. The first warning came as a flicker on the long-range scanners, a distortion in the void between stars. Lieutenant Chen aboard the USN Atlantica leaned forward, her fingers dancing across the holographic display. Sir, we've got multiple contacts emerging from warp, massive energy signatures. Captain Reyes of the Atlantica straightened in his command chair. Identify. Chen's voice tightened. Vorak signatures, sir. Hundreds of them. No, thousands. On the main view screen, The blackness of space rippled like water struck by stones. Then they came, jagged, pulsating dreadnoughts, oozing corrosive mist, their hulls resembling exposed bone and sinew. The Vorak war fleet filled the void above Proxima Centauri, blotting out the stars. Rhea's comm crackled. "This is Proxima Orbital Command to all human vessels. We are under attack. Repeat, we are." The transmission dissolved into static as the first wave of bioplasma torpedoes struck the colony's shields. "Helm full evasive," Rhea barked. "Get us between those bastards and the colony." The Atlantica banked hard, her aging thrusters groaning under the strain. Around them, the Vorak fleet unleashed hell. Acidic projectiles splashed against human ships, eating through armor, plating like fire through paper. A mining freighter, the Ceres Dawn, took a direct hit amidships. Her hull split open like a rotten fruit, spilling atmosphere and bodies into the void. "Return fire!" Reyes shouted. The Atlantica's railguns thundered, tungsten slugs punching into a Vorak cruiser. The alien ship shuddered, then kept coming, its wounds sealing with grotesque living tissue. On the bridge of the Vorak command ship, Commander Droth flexed his 4 muscular arms. His lipless mouth split into something resembling a smile as he watched the human defenses crumble. "Pathetic," he rumbled in guttural galactic common. "Their weapons tickle, their shields break like eggshells." He turned to his tactical officer, broadcast to all human channels. Droth's hideous face appeared on every human view screen, his yellow eyes burning with malice. "People of Proxima Centauri, your pitiful fleet amuses us. Surrender your colony within the hour, or we will erase you from existence." The transmission cut abruptly. Aboard the Atlantica, Ensign Porter swallowed hard. "Sir, our railguns are having no effect. Their ships are regenerating faster than we can damage them." Reyes clenched his fists. "Then we hit them harder, divert all power to forward batteries." "Captain," Chen shouted, multiple Vorak cruisers breaking formation. "They're heading for the colony." Reyes watched in horror as a cluster of Vorak ships descended toward Proxima Centauri's primary settlement. The planetary shield flickered valiantly, then failed under a concentrated bile bombardment. The first acid rains began falling on New Halifax, the colony's capital city. Skyscrapers dissolved into bubbling sludge. Screams filled the comm channels before being abruptly silenced. "All ships, defensive formation Delta," Reyes ordered. "Protect the evacuation shuttles." The remaining human vessels, 24 aging cruisers, and a handful of retrofitted mining ships, formed a ragged line between the Vorak and the colony. Their railguns fired in unison, creating a kinetic barrier of superheated metal. For a moment, it worked. Several Vorak ships peeled away, their organic hulls rupturing under the barrage. Then the Vorak flagship fired, a massive glob of bioplasma, larger than a city block, arced through space. The Atlantica's point defense lasers vaporized half of it, but the rest struck home. The corrosive payload splashed across the cruiser's bow, eating through decks in seconds, structural integrity failing. Chen screamed as warning klaxons wailed. Decks 1 through 12 breached. Reyes grabbed the comm. All hands abandon. The Atlantica split apart in a silent explosion, her hull plates flying in all directions. For a brief moment, the dying ship's reactor core flared brighter than Proxima Centauri's sun, then winked out, leaving only debris and frozen corpses. Droth watched the destruction from his command throne. "Clean up the rest," he ordered. "Leave one ship alive to carry word of our victory back to Earth." Aboard the USN Vanguard, the last surviving human cruiser, Commander Lee watched the Atlantica's destruction with numb horror. His tactical officer turned to him, face pale. "Orders, sir?" Lee took a shuddering breath. "Fall back to the Sol system, maximum warp." He looked at the burning colony below. "And someone get a message to Admiral Cole. Tell him Proxima has fallen." As the Vanguard fled, Droth's laughter followed them through the void. The Vorak warlord turned to his second in command. "Prepare the next wave. These humans will learn their place, kneeling before us." On Earth, the news arrived like a hammer blow. The Martian War veterans remembered the taste of defeat. But this was different. This wasn't a civil war between human factions. This was extinction. In her hidden lunar lab, Dr. Elena Vasquez watched the footage of Proxima's fall with shaking hands. Behind her, the prototype Singularity cannon hummed ominously. She turned to Captain Blake, her eyes burning with cold fury. They want a war? Fine. We'll give them one they'll never forget. The asteroid field near Pluto was supposed to be a graveyard, a silent, frozen wasteland where nothing of value drifted except the occasional mining rig. Today, it was an ambush. Admiral Marcus Cole watched the tactical display from the bridge of the USN Vanguard, his fingers drumming against the armrest of his command chair. The Vorak fleet was coming, just as predicted. Thousands of jagged, bile-spewing dreadnoughts, their organic hulls pulsing with grotesque life as they tore through the void. Their arrogance was their weakness. They hadn't even bothered to scan the field. All ships, hold position, Cole murmured into the comm. Wait for my mark. On the Defiance. Captain Ryan Blake stood beside Dr. Elena Vasquez, both staring at the same feed. The prototype Singularity cannon hummed beneath their feet, its power core thrumming like a caged beast. You sure this thing won't rip us apart too? Blake asked, eyeing the readouts. Elena smirked. 80% sure, Blake exhaled. That's the best we've got. The first wave of Vorak ships plowed into the field, their corrosive bile launchers primed, their commanders laughing over open channels. They'd already burned Proxima. They thought Earth would be next. Then the trap sprang. Stealth coatings disengaging, shouted a lieutenant aboard the Titan's Fist. Across the asteroid belt, human warships flickered into visibility, their hulls shedding the radar, absorbent composites that had hidden them. Railguns spun up. Plasma batteries glowed red-hot. Droth's voice boomed over the comms, his guttural language translated by the fleets. AI, pathetic ambush. Your toys cannot harm us. Blake didn't answer. He tapped his console. Fire the damn thing. The Singularity cannon activated. Deep in the belly of the Defiance, magnetic containment fields collapsed. A pinpoint of darkness flared at the weapon's mouth, then erupted forward in a beam of twisted space-time. It struck the lead Vorak flagship dead center for a heartbeat. Nothing happened. Then the dreadnought's hull rippled. Its organic armor twisted inward, warping like liquid sucked down a drain. The ship's midsection collapsed into a single impossible point before exploding outward in a spiral of shredded flesh and molten metal. The black hole lingered for 3 terrifying seconds, swallowing everything within a kilometer radius. 2 more Vorak cruisers were caught in the pull, their screams cut short as they were crushed into atoms. The remaining fleet recoiled. Droth's voice returned, but the mockery was gone. What is this? Cole's face appeared on every human ship screen, his scarred lip curled in a feral grin. Welcome to humanity's answer, you overgrown roaches. The Vorak scrambled. Their formation breaking apart, some turned to flee, others charged. Bile launchers firing wildly, too late. Human railguns roared to life, slugs punching through organic hulls at relativistic speeds. Plasma cutters carved through warships like knives through rotten fruit. The asteroid field became a slaughterhouse. On the Defiance, Elena watched the carnage with cold satisfaction. Tell the Council that's obsolete, she muttered. Blake clapped her on the shoulder. Save the gloating. We're not done yet. The Vorak weren't just retreating. They were broadcasting, begging for reinforcements, screaming for mercy. Cole wanted the whole galaxy to hear. High Prelate Vexis watched the nebula projection with growing unease. His crystalline fingers tapped against the armrest of his gravity, thrown each touch sending tiny fractures through his exoskeleton. The other delegates murmured in their native tongues, their amusement fading as the holographic display flickered and changed. What is this? Vexis demanded, his voice a sharp chime. The projection stabilized, and the chamber fell silent. Real-time footage filled the air. The Vorak fleet, once an unstoppable tide of bio-organic dreadnoughts, was being torn apart. Human ships, sleek and angular, darted through the chaos like wolves among sheep. Their weapons didn't just pierce Vorak hulls, they erased them. Entire ships vanished in flashes of distorted space, swallowed by something unseen. "That's impossible," whispered a Ceralian delegate, its floating orbs pulsing with alarm. "The humans don't possess gravitational weaponry. Their tech was obsolete." A new voice cut through the chamber. The projection split, revealing Admiral Marcus Cole's scarred face. He stood on the bridge of the USN Defiance, the glow of battle lighting his features. Behind him, crewmen worked in controlled frenzy, their voices sharp with purpose. Vex's exoskeleton darkened, his crystalline plates shifting to a deep, furious violet. "You dare broadcast this heresy to the Conclave?" Cole smirked. "Oh, we're just getting started." The footage zoomed in on the heart of the battle. A Vorak flagship, a monstrous vessel the size of a small moon, oozed corrosive bile from its ruptured hull. Then, light bent space itself twisted like a sheet of paper crumpling in an invisible fist. The flagship shuddered, its structure warping before collapsing inward. In less than a second, it was gone. Only a ripple of distorted stars remained. The chamber erupted. "You violated galactic arms treaties," shrieked a Zephyrian aide, their voice cracking. "Gravitational weapons are forbidden." Cole leaned closer to the feed. "Funny, the treaties only apply to Federation members." His grin was all teeth. "You made sure we weren't one." Vexis rose, his throne humming beneath him. "This changes nothing. The Vorak are but one species. The Federation has fleets beyond counting. You cannot hope to—" "Hope," Cole interrupted. He turned, nodding to someone off. Screen, "We're past hope." The projection shifted again. This time, it showed the USN Titan's fist, its hull scorched but intact. A massive cannon, its barrel ringed with glowing coils, pulsed at its prow. "Meet the Singularity Lance," Cole said. Dr. Vasquez's little project. A Vorak cruiser lunged at the Titan's fist, its bile cannons firing. The human ship didn't evade. The corrosive spray hit and dissipated harmlessly against a shimmering barrier. "Shield tech stolen from the Zephyrians," Cole added, watching Vex's reaction. "Turns out, our primitive engineers improved it." The Singularity Lance fired space tour. The Vorak cruiser didn't just explode, it unraveled. Its molecular structure ripped apart by the artificial black hole blooming at its core. The other Vorak ships scattered, their formations breaking into panic. Vex's exoskeleton paled to near transparency. "You'll be exterminated for this." Cole's smile vanished. "Try." The feed cut, silence gripped the chamber. The delegates stared at the empty space where the projection had been. Their confidence shattered. Vex's mind raced. The humans weren't just fighting back, they were winning. And worse, they were using the Federation's own arrogance against them. A low chime echoed through the chamber. The emergency alert. Vexis turned to the nearest console. The holographic display flickered to life, showing the outer rim of Zephyrian space. Dozens of human ships. No, hundreds were dropping out of warp. Their weapons glowed hot, their formation flawless. At their lead, the USN Defiance. Cole's voice crackled over the Conclave's comms, calm and deadly. "You banned our tech. Good. Now you'll learn why." The first orbital defense platform exploded before anyone could respond. The Defiance shuddered as it exited warp space, its hull groaning under the strain. Elena Vasquez gripped the railing of the bridge, her knuckles white. The holographic display flickered to life, revealing the Zephyrian homeworld in all its crystalline glory, towering spires of living diamond, orbital rings humming with energy, thousands of warships glittering like a swarm of jeweled wasps. "Status report," Captain Blake barked. Singularity cannon at phase charge, Elena replied, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her. Shields holding, but their defense grid is locking onto us. Blake didn't flinch. Then we don't give them time to fire. Outside, the rest of the USN fleet emerged from warp. Vanguard Titan's fist. A dozen more ships, their railguns already spinning up. The Zephyrian response was immediate. A hail of plasma fire streaked toward them. Brilliant lances of violet and gold. The Defiance's point. Defense guns roared to life, intercepting the worst of it, but the ship still rocked under the impact. Elena, Blake said, turning to her. His eyes were hard. Can we do it? She didn't hesitate. Yes. The Zephyrian command ship, a massive faceted monstrosity, loomed ahead, its weapons glowing with building energy. Vex's voice crackled over the comms, his usual arrogance tinged with something new. Fear, you dare bring your primitive weapons to our home. You will be erased from history. Blake smirked. Elena, fire the damn thing. She slammed her palm onto the activation console. The Defiance shuddered again, deeper this time, a vibration that rattled bones. The Singularity cannon hummed, a sound like the universe itself holding its breath. Then, with a flash of impossible darkness, it fired. The black hole tore through space, invisible but for the distortion in its wake. The Zephyrian command ship didn't stand a chance. One moment it was there, gleaming and proud. The next, it was gone, swallowed whole. Its remains crushed into nothingness. Silence gripped the bridge. Then cheers erupted. But Elena wasn't celebrating yet. Her eyes were locked on the display. The black hole hadn't dissipated. It was growing, dragging in nearby ships, the Zephyrian defense grid buckling under its pull. Captain, she said, her voice tight. We have a problem. Blake followed her gaze. The black hole wasn't just consuming ships. It was spiraling toward the planet. Vex's voice returned. Shrill now. What have you done? You'll kill us all. Elena's fingers flew over the controls. I can't shut it down. The containment field is failing. Blake didn't hesitate. All ships full retreat. Get clear of the event horizon. The Defiance banked hard, engines screaming as it fought the black hole's pull. Behind them, the Zephyrian homeworld's orbital rings shattered. Massive chunks of debris spiraling into the void. The planet's atmosphere began to distort, rivers of light twisting toward the Singularity. Elena watched, her stomach churning. This wasn't just a weapon. It was an extinction event. Vex's final transmission cut through the chaos. You monsters, you've doomed us. Then the signal died. The Defiance broke free just as the black hole reached critical mass. With a final silent implosion, the Zephyrian homeworld collapsed in on itself, gone in an instant. The bridge was dead silent. Even Blake looked shaken. Elena swallowed hard. We just wiped out a civilization. Blake exhaled slowly. No, we showed the galaxy what happens when you push humanity too far. On the view screen, the remaining Zephyrian ships hung motionless, their weapons dark. Then, one by one, their comms lit up, not with threats, but with surrender codes. Elena leaned back in her chair, exhaustion hitting her like a freight train. It was over, but as she stared at the empty space where a planet had once been, she couldn't shake one terrible thought. What have we become? The galactic conclave chamber stood silent for the first time in its 1,000-year history. The swirling nebula projection had been replaced by the stark blue, white glow of human holoscreens, their angular symbols pulsing where alien sigils once floated. The gravity thrones lay in ruins, their anti-grav generators smashed by armored boots. Only one remained intact, and it wasn't for sitting. Admiral Marcus Cole stood over high prelate Vexis, his scarred face illuminated by the glow of the Zephyrian's cracked crystalline skin. The alien overlord knelt on the polished floor, his once pristine exoskeleton spider-webbed with fractures from sheer terror. Behind Cole, Captain Blake and Dr. Vasquez watched as human marines dragged Commander Droth's mangled body through the chamber doors, leaving a trail of viscous green blood. The Vorak warlord had tried to bite Elena's throat out during surrender negotiations. Big mistake. You banned our ships, Cole said, tapping the insignia on his uniform, a silver earth wreathed in flames. Our weapons, our right to defend ourselves. He crouched until his breath fogged Vex's fractured faceplate. But you never banned our anger. Outside the chamber's panoramic viewports, the Zepyrian homeworld burned. Not the cities. Cole wasn't a butcher. Just the orbital rings, those glittering symbols of their technological supremacy, now twisted wreckage drifting in high orbit. The USN Defiance hovered like a specter above the planet, its singularity cannon humming at phase charge, a warning. Blake stepped forward, his boots crunching on shards of broken alien tech. Funny thing about kinetic weapons, he said, flipping a spent railgun slug in his palm. They don't need fancy energy shields to work, just physics and rage. He dropped the slug onto Vex's lap. You should have studied Newton. Elena approached, her fingers dancing over a holographic readout. Singularity containment stable at 5 terawatts, she announced. Enough to crack your planet's crust if we feel disrespected again. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Vex's voice emerged as a broken warble, his translator struggling through damaged vocal membranes. The Federation will never accept this humiliation. Cole straightened, his shadow swallowing the cowering alien. There is no Federation, he said. On the main display, footage played of human fleets glassing Vorak breeding worlds, of Zepyrian dreadnoughts torn apart by railgun barrages, just humanity, and those smart enough to kneel. A chime sounded, incoming transmission from Earth. President Zhao's face appeared, her expression unreadable. Admiral, she said, the Council of Nations has voted unanimously. Vexis looked up, his cracked eyes flickering with desperate hope. Zhao continued, effective immediately, all former Federation territories fall under Earth's protection. Her lips thinned. By force, if necessary. Blake chuckled, nudging a shattered piece of Vex's throne with his boot. Hear that, High Prelate? You're a protectorate now, congrats. Elena tapped her datapad, and with a shuddering groan, the chamber's ancient holographic systems rebooted, inhuman galactic maps reconfigured, borders bleeding crimson as Earth's dominion spread across the stars. Well, be taking your fleet yards, she said conversationally, and your quantum forges. And, oh yes, she zoomed in on a blinking red dot near the galactic core. That lovely little black hole generator you've been hiding. Vexis made a sound like shattering glass. You knew. Cole's grin was all teeth. We've had spies in your lab since day one. That misfiring railgun footage. Old tech, very old. He leaned down. You mocked our weapons, now the galaxy runs on them. Outside, the Defiance's cannons pulsed. Not firing, just cycling. A reminder, the Marines at the doors snapped to attention as a squad dragged in the last of the Zepyrian High Council, their crystalline limbs bound with graphene cables. Blake cracked his knuckles. Time to discuss terms, he said, starting with how many of your ships we're confiscating. Elena pulled up a list longer than Vexis was tall, and scientists, and star drives. And Enoch, Cole said. He turned to the viewport, where Earth's flag now projected across the Zepyrian sky. They'll learn, they'll obey. Or he glanced at the Singularity Cannon's status readout. They'll burn. Vexis stared at the human banners replacing his people's emblems. His shoulders sagged. The galaxy had changed in a single day. And humanity was just getting started.